Welcome to the traditional camp info session. We'll get started in a few moments. In the meantime, I'm going to share a little drone footage from camp. We'll be starting in just a few moments. Enjoy this drone footage. Let's see if I can get that out of there.
Look at that peninsula. Doesn't look like that today, but it sure is pretty.
So we will, as I said, my name is Bernard Rocca. I'm the executive director, joined here by Lindy Tracy, our program director at Camp Echo. We will get started in about 4 or 5 minutes. We are using the webinar feature tonight. And with that, if you'd like to, if you have questions that you'd like to ask, you can go ahead and use the question and answer feature and start populating questions that you have. This evening, we aren't going to go through too much or any content really. A lot of our information is available in our YouTube videos on YouTube, our info sessions on our website. So really, we're here to answer questions tonight. So go ahead and slide those questions into the question and answer if you'd like.
Yeah, other friends are joining us. Kristen Brown is our office manager at the Y in Evanston, and Lily is currently our office specialist, also at the Y in Evanston, and is also going to be our teens unit leader this summer. So they're joining us as well. Hi, Ropes.
All right, so we see we do have some questions already coming in. So feel free to ask questions, post those questions, what you really want us to answer tonight as we watch our horses, a unique perspective on our horses and our horse pasture next to our riding ring at camp. That is a great footage from several years back of our horse. I have to admit that as a staff ride, our campers should not expect to be cantering through our pastures. That is our area known as Cantering Pines, where we used to do more cantering. These days, mostly walk and trot rides is what we offer. But a beautiful part of camp. We also sometimes hammock in that area. Great place to relax and enjoy, go for hikes. Awesome. So we're getting some good questions coming in. So please continue to pop those in. It is 8 o'clock on the dot here. So we are going to go ahead and get started. We will do some quick introductions again here of our full-time team that is answering questions tonight, both out loud and in writing for the question and answer section. So my name is Bernard Rocca. I'm the executive director at Camp Echo. So my role is to just help make sure that all aspects of camp are going well, from food service to our facilities, to our programming, our alumni engagement, and that we're thinking about, the long term of camp. We're really excited. We're coming up on our 100th anniversary in summer 2024. So building off the success of the past and looking towards the future. I will pass it to Lindy and then Kristen and Lily to introduce themselves real quick.
Thank you, Bernard. Hey, everybody. My name is Lindy. I'm the program director for Camp Echo. I use she, her pronouns. And wow, just watching this footage and having you all here. I wish I could see all your faces. Can't wait to have your campers at camp this summer. It's gonna be a blast. If you have programmatic questions, activity questions, and you want some specifics about all of those things, Whether you ask tonight in the Q&A or you give us a call and ask for Lindy, happy to help and excited to have your campers, or maybe even you, at camp this summer. Kristen's up next, I think, and then Lily.
Hi, I'm Kristen Brown. I'm the office manager. You've probably gotten lots of communications from me. I do my best to answer all your questions and work with the squad to get answers to the things that I can't handle. Lily, you're up.
Hi, my name is Lily Brenner. I use she, her pronouns, and I both get to work in the office here as an office specialist working alongside Kristen, as well as being the teen unit leader for this summer. So I'll be overseeing a lot of our teen programs.
Fantastic. So the way this is going to work here is that I am going to kind of be taking a look at the various questions that are coming in, and I will be kind of sending those questions off to the appropriate staff member here to help answer them and get as many of these questions answered as possible. And then we'll go from there and we'll see some themes. Again, our session is primarily focused on traditional camp. We will be spending about half an hour talking about traditional camp and then transitioning into our teen programs, followed by some time talking about our adventure trips. But we'll slide in, if I see we have at least one question already about teens, and we'll see where we can slide those in because I think they pertain to other programs as well. So the first question I'm going to field is actually related to medication. So a quick question about, should we provide over-the-counter meds like Tylenol or Claritin if our child just takes them as needed for symptoms, but not daily? You do not need to supply your campers or send your campers with over-the-counter meds that are as needed. So we have, our clinic is well stocked with things like Tylenol and Claritin. If you expect that your camper will need to take those every day, we do ask that you send it with them, and send it with them as in fill out a prescribed medication form and check them in before sending your campers to camp. Campers, all their meds have to be checked in at camp. But again, we don't have the capacity to give campers those meds every single day if they are known need, but just if they're as needed, our clinic has them and will administer them as necessary. The next question I'm going to send over to Lindy, and Lindy could probably spend half an hour answering this question, but I'm going to ask her to just give a quick snapshot of what the flow of a typical day at traditional camp is like.
Awesome. Great question. And yes, I could go into detail. I'm going to give you an overview. Campers are going to wake up around 7:30 a.m. and have some time to get morning routine going. So bathroom, changing, and then they head to our flag raising and our morning reflection, a time to get the energy up and also get the mind centered for an awesome day at camp. And then they'll head to breakfast to get their nutrition for the morning. And then the morning time has a lot of fun activity blocks of time. They'll have cabin group where they spend time with their cabin, and then they'll have an opportunity to participate as traditional campers in activity times called camptivities. And yes, that means camp activities, but just with a little flair. And those are activities that they get to sign up for. They get to preference what activities they'd like to dive into, and they get to spend 4 days in a row in those activities so that they develop skills and get to know their groups there. Then we have lunch, and after lunch, a rest hour called Saska. Not necessary that campers need to sleep, although many do. Many do find that if they close their eyes for 10 minutes, they will actually fall asleep for a little bit. But just a downtime to write letters, read, draw, whatever your camper likes to do. Afternoon has activities galore as well, another camptivity time, and then a free choice time called Fun Swim. And Fun Swim has many of the activities that are open during camptivity times that maybe a camper doesn't want to spend 4 days, let's say, at archery, but they might have an opportunity to go do an activity like that. So Fun Swim is a good choice time. And then evening time, we have our flag lowering dinner. And then after dinner, a short second free time called Twilight Fun, which is mainly on the peninsula. So that awesome piece of land that you saw in the drone footage. And we finished the day with evening program, a time for all of traditional camp to come together and do a really fun big group game or like small cabin challenges that have a culmination piece of all together time. And then clinic time, make sure we get our campers any medications they need at bedtime. And then bedtime routine, including time for headed to the Kaibos for bathrooms and also something called a TAPS talk, like a final reflection for the day. And then bedtime, maybe reading a book and winding down to get your campers ready to go to bed. Just quick overview of the day.
Awesome. Thanks, Lindy. And I see that there was a question about, if every day is the same, if the schedule is the same, and most of the days are the same, follow that same flow, with the exception of the first day, which has a slightly different rhythm as we're getting checked in and doing our swim evaluation the first 24 hours that we're at camp. The last day, obviously packing up and getting ready to go. And then in our 2-week sessions, we also have kind of a special day in the middle that we often refer to as the Olympics, where it's kind of an all-day themed activity on the middle Saturday, where we group 3 or 4 cabins together to compete in a variety of challenges, physical, sporting events, spirit, cheers, and energy, and the mix. So the schedule varies slightly in that regard, but pretty much follows the same flow. I do see that we have some follow-up questions on the medication point. And so someone's asking if vitamins are treated like over-the-counter medication or if kids can kind of bring those and self-administer. And we do consider those scheduled medications. For our licensing, we are required to check in any pills, supplements, vitamins. I'll tell you even, sometimes we have maybe small doses of food if people are doing allergy treatments, anything that needs to be consumed on a regular basis of that nature cannot be kept in cabins. And there is someone asked about a specific medication release form. So if you haven't looked through all the forms yet, hop into your Camp in Touch and take a look there. But there is a scheduled and prescribed medication form where you list out again, whether it be a vitamin, supplement, over-the-counter medication or prescribed medication. You fill out what it is, when it's administered, how much is administered, and our clinic staff will check in with the campers on the first day of camp to make sure that they have all the right information and that they're in agreement on what those are. There is a question in the health form as to whether parents want to be contacted before administering over-the-counter medications or not. So that means, if your camper needs Tylenol, has a headache, do you allow us to give them that Tylenol, or do we need to be able to get in touch with you first before administering that? So again, for all of our participants, those do need to be checked in and the forms need to be completed.
Bernard, correct me if I'm wrong, but also like medicated creams or lotions are included in that, over-the-counter category that does need to be checked in.
Yep, you got it. All right, I'm going to rapid fire some activities. When we talk about camp activities, different choices, and Lindy's going to let me know if I miss any. As we see the drone footage in the background, I'm just looking at our peninsula. So that's the heart of camp and a lot of our aquatic activities. Starting in the lower right, arcing over counterclockwise, we have our water skiing area, our swimming area, fishing, sailing, paddle sports are all popular camp activities. We do sports, drama, dance, archery, arts and crafts, nature. And then we also have a variety of creative activities that our staff come up with week to week that vary slightly. Lindy, is that a pretty good snapshot?
Yeah, love it. And just know if your camper desires to do an activity that you think we can make happen at camp, we can probably make it happen. We're going to try our best to do that. So have them talk to their counselors about, it would be awesome if we had a camptivity on Star Wars or whatever it is. And sometimes we can make some fun, creative things happen for your campers.
Awesome. And I see a question about can campers participate in water-based activities if they refuse to swim test or do not pass? Our swim levels for our non-swimmers or introductory swimmers is red, and then for our intermediate swimmers is white, and our advanced swimmers is blue. And there is more kind of detailed explanation of our swim evaluation in the resources in our info video on YouTube and also on our website. But campers can still participate in water activities, but there are just certain restrictions to make sure that they're safe. So they can swim in our deeper white and blue areas or swimming area, but they have to be wearing a life jacket. And then similarly, they could go sailing or tubing or canoeing, but they would need to be wearing a life jacket. All of our campers, no matter their swim level, need to wear a life jacket, and our staff as well when they're out in boats. But to do those canoeing, sailing, or tubing, they would need to be accompanied by a staff member or lifeguard. So those are kind of some of the restrictions or ways that campers who can still participate in water-based activities if they choose not to take the swim evaluation or do not pass it. Lindy, can you talk a little bit about horseback riding at camp and how people sign up for that as a camptivity, but also what activity opportunities people have to do horseback riding beyond camptivities?
Would love to. And before there's a question I saw earlier, real quick, about fans and cabins. We do have box fans in our traditional camp cabins. If you would like your camper to have like a little fan that like clips onto their bedside and battery operated, totally fine. But in general, we have really large vents in the top of our cabins too. And they sit on a concrete slab. So the cabins, even when it's hot in the summer in Michigan, they're cool. They're temperature controlled. Almost, it feels like AC sometimes. So to answer that. All right, horses. Yes, horses. We have an awesome barn crew coming to camp this summer. And we want to get all of our campers to have a horse experience, to have whatever interaction with horses that they desire. So here's what that might look like. For our 1 week sessions that aren't participating in camptivities, but still get to do camp activities in general, they will have at least what we call like a horse experience. So that might be their cabin visits the barn. They get to pet or groom horses. They will might be able to get like on a horse to do a ring ride around our riding ring. But in general, like that's the 1 week camp experience for our campers. For 2 week programs, they can sign up for horse camptivity. It is an extra fee. That's a form that you can sign up for through your Camp in Touch forms. But that would sign them up for 4 days of horse lessons. So they would go for 4 1-hour camp sessions with the horses, and they would have the opportunity to do grooming, learn horse terminology and horse care, yes to a ring ride, yes to a trail ride. And what's really cool about horse camptivity is they often get paired with like a horse for the week, so they get to know their horse pretty well and take pride in caring for and bonding with that animal. Depending on staffing this summer, and it's looking really good right now, would love to be able to offer trail rides for some campers as well. Stay tuned for that commitment. So right now, if your camper's really excited about horses, get them signed up for horse camptivity. And as always, please have your camper communicate with their counselor what they're really excited about. If that is time with horses, let's see how and how much we can make that happen.
And while we're talking about horses, Kristen, could you briefly share what's the process in Camp in Touch to sign up for horseback riding lessons if someone would like to do that during one of our 2 week sessions?
There is a form, and I'm sure all of you reviewed all your forms today because they are due May 1st. There is a horseback lesson sign up form, and you can submit that and say we would like to sign up for horseback riding lessons in session 3, 4, or 5. And once we get that form, if you want lessons and there's still a spot available, and as of this morning, there still were in all 3 sessions, then we sign up your camper and send you a confirmation.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. So still on the theme of activities, a few questions about kind of the 1 week sessions versus the 2-week session differences. And so in the 1-week sessions, the activities are done primarily with their cabin group. So our 1-week sessions are really meant to create opportunities for our campers to try a lot of different activities and to do that with their group. And then in our 2-week programs, an opportunity to kind of do a deeper dive into the activities that are more interesting to them or of greater interest broadly. The 1-week sessions, you don't actually need to sign up for anything in advance. Each cabin will have a rotation of activities, and every cabin will have an opportunity to do kind of the classic camp activities. Every cabin will have an opportunity to do archery and go fishing and spend time at the waterfront. And then there are some free choice times in that schedule that Lindy talked about, where they also will get to go and do the activities they're most excited to do, in addition to those times when they get to experience all the different camp activities with their campers. In the 1-week sessions and in the 2-week sessions as well, we have a progression of what we call our undernight and overnight experiences. In both experiences, the cabin one night will go and cook their own dinner over a campfire, roast s'mores at one of our overnight sites, which is kind of a fire pit on a remote part of our 500-acre property. Some of them aren't so remote. Our younger kids, we keep a little closer to home. But in general, our younger campers do the undernight experience, which means they come back to their cabin and sleep in their cabin, whereas our older campers in traditional camp will actually spend the night out sleeping in tents at one of their locations and come back in the morning. And we don't have kind of like a firm dividing line on grades, but generally speaking, our 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, and when we say that, our rising 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, so what they'll be in the fall of 2023, do the undernight experience, and our middle schoolers, rising 6th through 8th graders, would be doing overnight experiences. I do see a number of questions about cell phones and our policies around cell phones, so I want to talk briefly about that. So our cell phone policy is that we don't allow them. We don't allow anything with screens, and we recognize that technology is evolving a lot, and so it's hard for us to identify every say yes or no to every type of device that people have. But the intention of our the spirit, if you will, of our expectations around screens is that nothing, campers don't have anything that has games on it, that connects to the internet, communicates with other campers or with their parents, and yeah, that they can watch movies or shows or anything like that on. So some things that we do allow is, a digital camera, if it's kind of a simple digital camera that takes some pictures, and they can look back at those photos and see what they've taken. And, like someone asked, I think, about an iPod Shuffle, to have music that they watch. And I think we've reached the end. I'm going to stop sharing as I think we've reached the end of our drone footage. Those types, any device like that, an iPod Shuffle that doesn't have a screen but plays music, is fine as well. Yes, that means no Apple Watches. You are correct. Someone asked for clarification on that. All right. Lindy, correct me if I'm wrong. Someone asked if there are any new activities this year. And I'm going to say we don't have any new program areas or specific program activities in terms of equipment this year, but our staff are always coming up with new games, new activities, anything that you want to lift up there that maybe I'm not thinking of.
Yeah, I mean, I would say yes to no like new program or activity areas. However, we like have some fun thoughts in the works for maybe not this summer, future summer. So if you have like fun ideas of like, I would really like to have like plot twist, a rock throwing area at camp, right? Some fun stuff like that, let us know. I think if you haven't been able to play like 9 Square or maybe utilized our carpet ball, what do you call those? Not rings, alleys in the social lodge. I guarantee you there are some things at camp that maybe you haven't tried or haven't gotten into that could be like a new activity.
Awesome. All right. I am going to try to rapid fire quickly through a couple of questions that I see here. They're kind of quick, and then I think we'll have some that are a little more involved. So am I required to check in normal body lotion? No, you can bring body lotion and have that with you in your cabin, not a problem. Similarly, we don't have any rules about makeup. Someone asked, makeup allowed? We don't have any rules prohibiting or guiding makeup, but it's not something that I would say is, excuse me, I think my there we go. My next YouTube video is starting in the background. So, you know, makeup is allowed, but not something that is utilized by many or any campers, I would say. And kids are given time throughout the day and reminded often to put on sunscreen. We also are really encouraging like sun shirts and sun hats, and you know, sunscreen can wash off quickly, and it's hard to sometimes apply it over every part of the body that needs it, and so especially like on the back and shoulders. So we really encourage sun shirts for our staff and campers. All right, this is one someone asked earlier. I want to make sure we touch on. I think is a really important question and topic. And how do we help integrate new campers who don't know anyone at camp? How do we make sure new campers are not left out of group activities with established groups? So I'm going to touch real quickly on how we do our cabin groupings and cabin mate requests, and then I'm going to ask Lindy to share a little bit more about how we are intentional in kind of facilitating group building and team building in camp. So cabin, a number of people asked about cabin mate requests. So we honor cabin mate requests of up to 3 people in a group. So if you take our full-time staff team as an example here, if Lindy, Kristen, and Lily wanted to be in a cabin together, and Lindy requested Kristen and Lily, Kristen requested Lily and Lindy, and then Lily requested Kristen and Lindy, the 3 of them all requested to be together. If they're within 1 grade of each other, sign up for the same program, same session, we would guarantee that those 3 are together. However, if they have 3 additional friends and they all kind of request to be in the same group, and then now it's a group of 6, we'll most likely divide that group up into 2 groups of 3. So we really encourage people not to create groups that are bigger than 3 people, because then you're leaving it up to us to make those divisions within the group. We do this for a couple of reasons. One of our goals for campers is to make new friends. So we want everyone making new friends at camp. And we know that sometimes when there's a big group of campers that know each other in a cabin, it can sometimes create a clique or make it more difficult for some of the campers in the cabin that aren't part of that group. So that's how we do cabin placement. So again, if you are requesting one person, you know, if you have one person you come to camp with and you 2 request to be together, then you will be together, but we want to keep those groups to 3 people or less. Lindy, I'm going to let you share a little bit more just about how we, you know, facilitate team building and cohesion and make sure that another one of our camp goals, inclusion, is accomplished within our cabin groups.
Sweet, thank you. I get the question a lot. Will my camper have fun if they come to camp and don't know anyone? And super valid question. Of course, even as adults, right? We and I recognize we have some campers on here too. You know, even adults really want to make sure they know somebody before they go into a new place. And I'll tell you that we are really, really intentional about especially in the first 24 hours. I mean, really the first few hours you are at camp, that we are learning names, that we are playing quick get to know you. So everybody is, you know, stretched a little bit to share some about themselves, make sure that you know your camper peer and counselor names. And this starts like making friends and starting to getting to know people starts on the bus. Our staff on the bus really make sure that there are positive interactions happening with campers and staff, and even with campers who are sitting next to or close to someone that they maybe don't know. Once they arrive at camp, once campers get to camp, our first 24 hours is really focused on group development and getting to know one another. Yes, names are important, and we will really start to get that cabin unit together. So within the first couple of hours, often campers who are like, I don't know anybody, already have a person who also didn't know anybody. And now they're, you know, clinging to each other a little bit and then growing that bond from day one. Things that you can expect within those like first 24 hours around cabin dynamic and relationship building. will be small group games, choosing your bunk in your bed space, and knowing who is sleeping in your cabin with you and around you. And also something called a full value contract. Think setting healthy expectations for the cabin and using camper voice of how are we going to have a successful week or two at camp. What do you need, really, like campers, like what do you need to feel respected, healthy, safe, and to have fun at camp? So we do that, and that is a really cool way to share perspective about the camp experience and what is needed for everybody. Every individual matters. And then the next day and onward, team building is built into so much of what we do. Cabin groups are intentional time for those cabins to be together and bond and make friends. And they might be doing some fun like team element challenges or things we call initiatives of group challenges that call on individual strengths and team bonding at the same time. Valid question, and super excited to get campers to make friends quickly and bond throughout the 2-week sessions and 1-week sessions, of course. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for all that, Lindy. All right, another couple more quick questions I'm gonna rattle off here. Do we play ball sports like soccer or football? Yes, we definitely do. We have our sports courts where we play basketball, knockout. We have a volleyball court. We play volleyball, or sometimes variations like Newcomb. We have a soccer field, flag football field, sometimes played there. So a lot of sports activities can be played. And someone was asking if there are bathrooms in the cabins, and there are not. We have shared bathrooms called bathhouses. So we have bathhouses, and we call them kaibos east, west, north, and way north. And so, but within those, there are individual private stalls for showering and such. So it's a short walk, and there are opportunities every day to shower. Campers will have an opportunity each day to shower. It might not always be the exact same time, but we do have time set aside for that. And, we want to make sure that those are supervised shower times. We want to make sure that everyone is staying safe. Safety is our primary goal. And so our counselors work with our campers to let them know what the various shower times are throughout the day so that they can stay clean and take care of themselves. A couple questions I see about the camp store. Actually, there's another question I want to answer real quick before I talk about the camp store, which is about bedding and going to bed. And someone asked if you do need to bring a sleeping bag or if bedding is supplied, and you do need to bring your own bedding. Sleeping bag is recommended, especially if you're going on that, if you're an older group that goes on overnight, so you can pack that sleeping bag up and take it with you on your overnight. A lot of campers do like to bring kind of a fitted sheet to put over the mattress, and to use the sleeping bag kind of as a blanket in that regard, and bring a pillow and towels and such. And someone asked about night lights in the cabin, and we do. We have night lights available in cabins when campers request that, and so that is something we're actually experimenting with, having them in all the cabins, possibly with some soft white noise as well to help people sleep. But that's something we're experimenting with for this summer. And I see just another quick question to answer. Yes, campers can bring musical instruments. However, we do really ask that and encourage people not to bring anything valuable to camp that could get damaged or hurt, so we don't recommend bringing any super valuable musical instruments. But I know some campers in the past have brought ukuleles, a great, like, small, easily carried and cared for musical instrument. So we'll talk about the camp store for a moment. Camp store we call our trading post. And as part of the program enrollment, every camper starts with $60 in their trading post account. And that's a really great amount because you can buy anything at the camp store for $60, but you can't buy everything. And so we encourage parents to chat with campers about that. And if you take a look, we have our online trading post, which you can access from our website. And that gives you a sense of what things cost in the trading post in terms of souvenirs and such. So sweatshirts are hooded sweatshirts, I should say, are about $35 or so dollars. Crew neck sweatshirt is about $25 to $30. T-shirts are more like $12 to $15. You can buy stickers for $1 or $2, snacks for a couple dollars. So, we encourage parents to talk with their campers about that. And Kristen or Lily will be able to throw the link to the online trading post in the chat if you want to take a look at that and see some of it. We are in the next week or two, we'll be updating it with the items that we have for sale this summer. So most of what you'll see there is last year's merchandise, much of which will still be available. And parents via the Camp in Touch system can see what their campers have spent money on, how much money they've spent, and what they've purchased, and decide if they want to add more funds to their campers account or not. I always tell campers, you are always welcome to ask your parents for more funds, and they're always welcome to say no, right? Like that's why we encourage a conversation, kind of expectation setting. Though we do recognize sometimes campers want to buy souvenirs for siblings or for other family members or friends. So, that's where, having that conversation in advance with your camper can help them kind of be intentional about budgeting throughout the session. And if there's less than $20 left in their account at the end of the session, that last little bit gets rolled into our scholarship fund for future summers. And if it's more than $20, then families are given the option of having a refund if they would like. Groovy. I'm just taking a look at the clock. We are at 8:30. And so if you are here for the teen info session, we are still robust with traditional camp questions. So we're probably going to take another 10 minutes here with traditional camp questions before focusing in on teen programs. I see a question about bringing your own baseball glove or football, basketball. We don't actually encourage that because we do have all the sports equipment you would need here at camp. And oftentimes that equipment gets mixed in with camp stuff and can be hard for campers to keep track of, kind of like the musical instruments. We don't want anyone to lose anything valuable. All right. Lindy, I feel like there was another question here for you that I saw. Saw a question about forms have already been submitted. Can we go back in and make any changes necessary? More so the health forms. Kristen, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, most of the forms you can update. So if things change, cabin mate requests change, transportation plans change. Very often, between now and camp, something in the meds or your medical history might change. So yes, you can always go in and update those forms. And if for some reason you're trying to update a particular form, I can't think of one that we don't allow you to update, but if something is locked down, then you just give us a call and we can return it to you so that you can update it again.
Fantastic. Lindy, can you talk a little bit about what layover programming is like and what it is?
Yeah, layover programs are an awesome opportunity for your camper to stay at camp in between sessions. That happens twice in the summer, and that's between session 2-3 and between session 4-5. There is not a layover between session 3-4. We run our staff in service training that time. So layover, you can expect your camper to have a little bit of privileged access to some Camp Echo activities. So usually on that Friday, they have time to participate in Camp Echo activities, whether that's in the waterfront. Maybe they have their own water ski or tubing session, and they have like a swimming time with the waterfront just for that small crew that's there. Or maybe the crew has opted like, hey, I really want to get on the bikes and do some of the Camp Echo trails we haven't been able to do. So they have their voice involved in what that afternoon may look like, but a fun activity-based programming time for Friday afternoon. What we currently have planned for Saturday is for the group to get up in the morning, have breakfast at camp, and pack lunch and snacks for the day, and then to head to Muskegon State Park, which is just about 45 minutes to an hour away from Camp Echo. Beautiful campgrounds on Lake Michigan with trails. There's also like an adventure sports park there that has some fun activities we might be able to participate in, like a zip line, or they have like an adventure trail, like immersion experience there that we can do. So they'll spend a fun day off of camp at local state park, And on the way back, we usually pick up some pizza and have yummy pizza for dinner, and then maybe more of a chill evening, whether that's group campfire, some stargazing, maybe a night hike, and then they are sleeping in camper cabins that kind of get grouped into new cabins, but they spend most of their time all together. And then Sunday will be another programmatic day at camp. They'll have breakfast in the morning, get to do some of the other activities they maybe were not able to do on Friday, and then they get ready to transition back into the next session of camp with a regular cabin.
Awesome. Thank you for that. All right. And again, we're kind of doing our best to hit on all the questions here. So appreciate your patience if we haven't answered your question quite yet. Can we speak to camp stamps? Do we need to purchase them, or can we send stamp envelopes with our campers? I'll say yes. And so you are welcome to send stamped envelopes with your campers, so they can send you letters home, and you can send them U.S. Postal Service letters to camp as well. We encourage that. I think it's a really fun part of camp, letters or postcards. But you can also utilize our camper email system through Camp in Touch, which utilizes camp stamps. Each family starts automatically with a few camp stamps to send a few letters back and forth. But if you are sending a lot or frequent letters, you may need to purchase some additional ones. And those emails, what it is you type in a letter to your camper, and then it comes to us at camp as a PDF that we print out and we put in with the cabin's mail for the day, which they get after lunch during SASCA, which is our rest hour, which is a time when everyone is expected to be quiet in their cabin and get some rest. And, sometimes if the cabin is doing a good job of kind of respecting everyone's need for quiet and space, there might be times when they could play some quiet games between campers in the cabin, play cards on the floor or something like that. As long as everyone is getting the rest that they need. And then campers can turn in, they can get a blank camper reply sheet, which is a sheet with a border and a barcode that they can write a letter back to their parents or guardians on, which then we scan the next day if they turn it in, and it returns to the parents as a PDF in their email. So that's kind of how we do email in a low-tech way. That's one of the main ways that campers communicate with parents during camp, is through letters and those camper emails. We really don't encourage campers or parents to expect to talk with each other by phone. If there is something going on that requires that, we will facilitate that. We'll often, if a parent were to call and say they really want to talk to their kid, we check in with the camper first and kind of let the parent know how they're doing. But, if the parent really wants to talk to their kid, we certainly would allow that, and vice versa. If a camper really expresses the need to talk to their parent, we would call the parent first and explain the situation, let them know, and let the parent help make that decision, because you all know your campers best. And certainly if there's any, illness or injury or event that comes up that's unexpected in that regard, we create plenty of space for parents and campers to communicate with each other to keep them informed of how they're doing. All right. Let's see. Do we have laundry at camp? All right. We do have laundry for staff at camp. We don't want campers to plan on doing laundry at camp or have that available to them. However, we do certainly support campers if they have, if they wet their sleeping bag at night, if they have things that get unexpectedly dirty and really a need to do some laundry, we can support that at camp, but we don't give all of our campers that opportunity. We don't have that as an expectation, but again, we want to support campers in unexpected situations, make sure they have what they need while at camp. All right, Lindy, are you seeing any questions? I'm kind of trying to scroll through here. Are you seeing any questions that I haven't touched on yet before we transition into teen programming?
Yeah, actually, I was just typing up a response, but I'm happy to talk about it. A good question about, what if my camper has never been to camp before, maybe is a homebody, or lives in a city and doesn't spend a lot of time, outside in nature? What do we do to make sure that these campers feel like they have a space at camp? I want to say that, you know, we do a lot of teaching and reteaching. So maybe some campers who have been at coming to camp for years, especially in the first few days, might hear a lot of the same, like, here's what this language means. Here's how we do this activity, and relearning those things. And we do that intentionally so that if it's a camper's first time, they are still included in the language and the activities and the schedule. You know, the other thing are a lot of the teaching and activities we do is scaffolded. So we are doing activities in a way that starts at a lower risk level, like easier for campers to get involved with. And as the weeks progress, we do a lot of listening and meeting campers where they are to make sure that they do feel included and they feel challenged in a healthy way and not pushed farther than they want to go. So great question. And that's something that we are always trying to be better at, making sure that it doesn't matter if you've never been to camp or you've been coming for years, that this is a space for you.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Lindy. All right. So I see that Kristen was telling me there were a few questions about bugs and about COVID. So there are bugs at camp. And I saw a question actually earlier about poison ivy as well. And so it is important to bring, we talk a lot about closed-toed shoes and long pants. Anytime we're going for hikes along our nature trail, through the woods, on our overnights, we always require that our campers and staff wear long pants and closed-toed shoes, because again, we have 500 acres and we can't, you know, prevent there from being bugs and occasional poison ivy or other irritant plants all over the place. So those do exist, and we do ask campers and staff to be, you know, stay on trails and wear those long pants to protect their skin when they're hiking through areas where they might be exposed to the elements a little bit more. Similarly, we encourage wearing bug spray all the time when we're going on those hikes. And we do, someone asked about ticks. You know, there are ticks in this area of Michigan. And so we do have signs posted in our bathhouses and our kaibos, and remind our campers to do tick checks regularly, which means just, you know, looking at over your body every 24 hours at least to make sure there are no ticks on you, and then letting a staff member and then our clinic know if there is anything of concern there. And if a camper does get sick, again, so our staff are checking in daily with campers. You know, it's really important to us that we're doing daily check-ins with our campers if anything's changed with their physical well-being, and then, you know, getting them in touch with our clinic staff, our health officers, and health directors if there's anything that's changing that they're not doing well with. And our clinic staff will evaluate them and determine appropriate next steps. With regards to COVID, and we will be sending out kind of our COVID protocols. You know, it's been an evolving year, and so we haven't put out our finalized protocols, but we will be putting that out. But, you know, if campers or staff do test positive for COVID, you know, obviously that is still a concern. It's a highly contagious illness, and similar to other highly contagious illnesses, you know, we would likely need to isolate and or head home if we test positive. And I see someone asking if we suggest testing for COVID. Again, we'll issue kind of our official expectations, but we don't want anyone coming to camp sick. So if anyone is symptomatic for anything, we encourage you kind of getting checked out by your doctors, or if you're able to do at-home tests for whatever the illness might be, because we want to make sure that everyone is getting to camp safely. All right. There's information about food on our website. I think I'll just say that it is our kind of standard camp fare. We always we serve family style at in our dining hall and have a choice bar where we often have alternatives, make sure that we have varied dietary options. So if we have campers who are vegetarian or vegan or don't eat dairy, and the entrees being served have those ingredients, we always want to make sure that there are various other options available to them. So we always work with our campers, have fresh fruit out at all times. And we do have scheduled opportunities for campers to get snacks between meals. Such as apples, oranges, bananas, goldfish, granola bars. And so that's something that we encourage our campers to talk to their staff, their counselors about if they need additional food. Let's see, I'm going to try to clear out some of these questions that I think we've answered. Is it possible to play D&D? I'm not an expert in Dungeons and Dragons, but I do believe that people like to play that, especially during some of our free choice times, and gather at some of our picnic tables on the peninsula to do that. Quickly, a question about security precautions in place for camper safety at camp. So that's, camper safety means a lot of different things in a lot of different ways. And so it starts with, making sure that we're hiring and great counselors and training them well. And so we have a robust applicant screening process involving checking a certain number of references by phone for every candidate, running a criminal background check, robust criminal background check through a variety of databases, and interviewing all of our candidates. And then in terms of security of kind of people coming onto camp who shouldn't be there, we do have a robust property, again, 500 acres, and we're on a lake, so there are a lot of different paths into camp, but our staff are really well trained to identify quickly anyone who's on camp property who shouldn't be. Our staff wear name badges at all times so that we know who our staff are, and if anyone's on site, they need to be wearing a visitor badge to make sure that we know who they are and why they're at camp, and then how to intervene and if someone's at camp that shouldn't be. And that's something we talk about with our campers as well. On the first day, we go over our variety of emergency procedures, from fire drills and lost camper drills to active threats and lost swimmer drills. All right. We have a number of other questions about kind of friend requests and activities and chances of getting with friends. And so even if you're not in the same cabin as your campers, you will see other campers in other cabins quite frequently. We eat all our meals together during free choice times. You're able to interact with other campers. We don't take friend requests for specific activities, our camptivity requests. Again, those are times where it's possible to be with friends if you've requested the same activities, but we can't guarantee that. Linda, you want to chime in real quick on how campers choose which bunk they'll be sleeping in, which specific bed?
Fun. Yeah, this is definitely a camper and cabin group effort. There are 10 campers a cabin, and there are going to be 5 lower bunks and 5 top bunks. Often, I'll say this happens often, it's nearly a 50-50 split of who wants a top bunk and who wants a bottom bunk, so it works out okay. And when it doesn't, and people have to be flexible, right? Like if you really, really, really wanted that top bunk and you got a bottom bunk, we have to be flexible there. I have had some campers and staff who decide, hey, since you both really, really want the top bunk, there's only one left, to do a midweek split where you get to swap top or bottom bunk. So it's a collaborative effort. It requires, patience, flexibility, maturity, and usually it works out just fine.
Wonderful. All right. Again, big shout out to our teen participants who are hanging tight here for a second, as our traditional campers. And maybe you were a traditional camper once upon a time and you remember how many questions you had and how excited you were to go to camp for the first time. So thanks for bearing with us here. I do see a question. Again, this question could apply to any programs, whether it be traditional camp or teen programs. And that's how do we support campers with special needs? How are they, integrated into activities? And that's obviously, that's a really broad topic. A lot of campers have different needs, and success looks different for a lot of different campers. And so it starts with kind of getting to know our campers as best we can before camp. And we ask that parents really share any insights they have in the camper forums, or with a direct email to Lindy or myself if you want to talk about it a little bit more of what your camper needs to be successful, and maybe what some of the challenges you anticipate might be, and how they've found success overcoming some of those challenges or being supported through some of those challenges in other settings. So we really work to, again, get to know the individual camper and what their needs are. And the more we have insight before they get to camp, generally the more successful they'll be at camp. We really, our goal is to, support everyone to be a part of their cabin group and participate in all the activities, knowing that, counselors are trained in how to create different opportunities within a single program. So different ways if a group, for instance, is playing a sport or going fishing or paddling, that there are different roles that different campers can have in that, and different ways that campers can challenge themselves to different levels based on what they need from the group.
And I'd say that includes like the information we can get from you and about campers is not only, maybe calling and having a conversation with myself. It really also is the camper forms and the information you're putting in those camper forms. We do go over them, and that really helps us with camper dynamics, cabin group dynamics, and really supporting your camper. So more information there is better. You were not gonna, overwhelm us if you write more than you think you should. We read them and are happy to have that information.
Indeed. So there's questions about our health staff. Again, this is for all of our camp programs. And when we think about health staff, we think about our physical and our mental, emotional, social health, what we call our mesh staff. So we always have at least one, sometimes two health officers who are trained as have health officer training or wilderness first responder EMT training, and then a health director who is a registered nurse or kind of a higher credentialed staff member. So at least two, sometimes three staff members kind of focus on the physical health of our campers. And then our mesh staff, we always similarly have at least one mesh director who is has their master's of social work or similar certification licensure, and a staff, what we call our mesh unit leader, who is generally someone who is studying on that path, maybe a recent college grad who's focused in the field of mental, emotional, social health, and able to support campers throughout the summer. Again, sometimes two staff in that role. So a lot of support in that regard. All right. So I see one more question here. I think this is the last question that I see, last two that are really focused on traditional camp, and then I'm going to kind of transition us just straight into talking about teens. But again, there's some broad questions here that I think kind of are true of all camp programs. So we'll still kind of be fielding questions that might kind of apply to both. Question about session 1 and session 2 in terms of kids getting to choose their own activities versus doing activities as a group. And sessions 1 and 2 as 1 week sessions, and session 6 as well. Those times will be primarily doing activities as a group. Again, we want our campers to kind of get to experience a broad range of activities during that 1 week. Campers who are signed up for traditional camp 1-2, which is kind of we didn't offer that before, and it's the first time in a while where we've had kind of an overlapping 2-week session of traditional camp with 1 week sessions going simultaneously, which we're really excited about. Great opportunity for younger and older siblings to be at camp at the same time, even if they're going to camp for different amounts of time. But the campers in traditional camp during sessions 1-2 will still do, because that's the rhythm of the majority of our traditional camp campers, will be doing most of their activities as a cabin. But we will be working with those campers and knowing that those are also some of our older traditional camp campers to make sure they're getting, if there's a lot of passion around specific activities, that they're getting to do those. And during that layover, Friday, Saturday, into Sunday between the two sessions will be an opportunity where we really give them more voice and advocacy for the activities that they want to do. All right. Whew. Traditional camp. That was a lot. You all were awesome. I appreciate all the folks who are still out there hanging tight. And yes, if we did not answer your question, please shoot us an email, give us a call. We'll keep answering those. And if you've asked a question and we still haven't answered it, stick around, because even though we're starting to transition to talking about teens, we may still be answering it. So teens. All right, here we go. So we have a variety of teen programs, and we're talking about our on-site teen programs. We also have adventure trip programs. And hey, pause. Maybe you just joined us midstream and you're like, who are these four people? One of whom is really talking a lot, and he needs to cool his jets a little bit. And these other folks who are being lovely and answering questions, texting or typing responses. So I'm Bernard. I'm the executive director at Camp Echo, oversee all of our programs and facilities, operations. I'm so excited to have such a great team around us here and so many excited campers and families. I'm going to pass it over to Lindy and then Lily and Kristen to introduce themselves too.
Hey friends, my name is Lindy Tracy. I'm the program director for Camp Echo. So I like to say the fun, the good stuff, activity areas, programmatic experiences. I have any questions around, camper life and activities and such. I'm your human. Give me a call or shoot me an email. I'm happy to help. Lily, I think you're up.
Yeah, hi, my name is Lily. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a office specialist. So I am happy to respond to some of your Echo info emails, as well as this summer, I will be the teen unit leader. So I'll be overseeing teen programs. Happy to answer your questions about our teens.
And I am Kristen Brown. I am the office manager. I also use she, her pronouns. I do a lot of the parent communication. So you've been hearing from me all year round, from how to register and now nagging about getting those forms in, and then it'll be how to get on the bus and how to get your campers home. Bernard, you're mute.
Yeah. I caught myself there. Kristen's always there to give me the reminders. Not just parents, she's reminding of things. So as we transition into teen programs, our on-site teen programs in particular, I'd like Lily, as our teen unit leader, could you just give us a quick rundown of what programs we are talking about as part of our on-site teen programs, maybe going from kind of chronologically our 9th graders through to our 11th graders?
Yeah, in our teen programming at Camp Echo, we have 2 tracks. We have our leadership track and our wilderness track. Starting with leadership and 9th graders, we have a program called Explorers. More service-based. It is for those campers who are fresh from main camp programming, and they will live in camper cabins. Then there is our LIT program. LIT stands for Leadership in Training, not Leaders in Training.
Leaders in Training.
Leaders in Training. And that is for rising 10th graders, focusing on mentorship and leadership and what that means at Camp Echo. And this is all a trajectory to counselor preparedness, because then our last leadership team program is our CITs, our counselors in training, which will be focused on what it is to be a Camp Echo counselor and to be a part of the organization. That is for rising 11th graders, because the following summer they could be junior staff members at our camp. For the wilderness program, we have our outpost that live in yurts on camp. They are doing a mix of traditional camp programming and wilderness programming. That is for rising 10th graders. And for rising 11th graders, we have our Birches program, which is also on camp, but in a different section of camp. That's sort of around our Ryerson Lake, where they reside in platform tents. And it's more focused on our wilderness skills.
Awesome. I'm gonna throw in one extra thing. Outpost, both of these programs are technically like Voyagers at Outpost and Voyagers at Birches as a wilderness
Yes.
program. And Outpost is going to be for our 9th graders, and then Birches is for
Oh.
10th and 11th graders.
Yes, 9th graders and 10th.
You had a lot.
Thank
You got,
you.
y'all, Lily has pretty much six programs going on at once within the teen life. So you
I could
nailed
talk
it.
a lot about them. There's so many nitty gritty, but I'm not going to get into them now unless you ask about them.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, Lily, for that rundown, and Lindy for the lift. So I want to start with kind of two broad questions, that again, apply to all programs, not just teen programs. And one was asked a little bit earlier about, are there campers of all races and religions at Camp Echo, and asking us to touch a little bit on, on our position of regarding cultural and ethnic diversity amongst camp staff and leadership. So thank you for those questions. And our goal at Camp Echo is to fully represent our community that we serve. Evanston, Illinois is our primary service community. About 60% of our campers come from the Evanston community, and then kind of 90% from what I call the greater Evanston area, Chicago, Evanston, Skokie, Wilmette, kind of the suburbs around that area. And then we also get campers from all over the United States, and sometimes even from other countries. And similarly, our staff come primarily from the Chicago area and the Midwest, but we also have a number of staff from countries throughout the world. This summer, we have staff coming from about 8 or 9 different countries, from different continents, from South America, Europe, Africa, and Asia. So we're really excited about the diversity that those staff leaders will bring to our community as well. And we train our staff to understand the different needs of our campers, how we can best create a space of belonging and a feeling of belonging within our campers of all different identities. And obviously being very thoughtful about religion, race, ethnicity, and culture, and how those all come together at camp. We have a space called Morning Reflection each day, where we all come together as a camp community, and kind of a staff member, most often a staff member, sometimes a camper or a group of campers will share a reflection for the day and talk about a lesson that everyone can share. And I often lead the first morning reflection and use that as a space to identify how camp has evolved, and that we started out as the Young Men's Christian Association as a camp that was specifically for young men who were Christian, and how we've evolved as a camp to be more inclusive of all genders, all religions, all races, all identities. We definitely don't have it perfect, and we continue to learn and grow. And we spend a lot of time during staff training talking with our staff about, again, how to be aware of our biases, how to create intentional programming that's not just welcoming, but creates that sense of inclusion and belonging for people from different backgrounds. And we utilize some external training partners as well as our own staff in achieving that. So it's very much a priority for us, central to the mission and vision of the McGaw YMCA, to really serve people from all backgrounds, and to be, again, aware of how of camp's history as sometimes an exclusive space specific to socioeconomics and race and culture, and how we can work to evolve in that way. So thank you for those questions, and we're always open to suggestions and feedback when we're not hitting the mark on those important questions. I will shout out, if you're here for trips, be a little patient. Our traditional campers were so enthusiastic and had so many questions that we ran long on that. We are going to answer some teen questions, on-site teen programs, just based on how many questions are in the queue right now. It's not nearly as many as we had for traditional camp. Not to say you all won't get rolling once our team starts answering questions. But I am going to speak to kind of a couple, again, broad questions. Someone asked a while ago, I don't know if they're still here, how many campers are there in total at camp? And within programs, so in traditional camp, we have about 150 to 150 campers, give or take, each session. So that's about 15 cabins of 10 campers. And then in our teen programs, we have at Outpost, we have anywhere from 12 to 20 campers in our Voyagers at Outpost program. We've got about 8 to 12 campers on average in our Voyagers at Birches program. Our leader and camp counselor and training programs do vary. Sessions 1, 2, and 3 are slightly smaller groups. And sessions 4 and 5, we have pretty large groups of our leaders in training and counselors in training. So those are kind of group size. At any one time, we have about 200 to 250 campers in our on-site programs. All right. Lindy, I'm going to toss this one to you. Will campers at Outpost session 1, 2, and other, or Lily, either y'all, be able to go horseback riding?
Session 1, 2, not in the horseback riding lesson capacity. Session 1, 2, we will not be offering horseback riding to campers. That does not, however, mean they won't have opportunities to connect with and engage with horses. So during their free choice time, there may be ring rides, paint a pony, open barn, lots of opportunities for them to be at the barn. And that is true for session 1, 2. If it is there in Outpost sessions 3, 4, or 5, in the first week of the Outpost programming, they will have camptivities, and horseback riding could be one of the camptivities that they sign up for.
And we do prioritize for Outpost campers who only do those when they only have that opportunity that first week. If they're signed up for horseback riding, we try to make sure that they get in that first week, so they don't miss the opportunity that second week.
All right, following up in the Outpost theme, does Outpost go on an overnight? And I'll ask you to maybe share also for Voyagers at Birches, talk a little bit about the offsite excursions for both those programs.
I am super excited for Outpost and Birches this summer because it will be our first time since 2019 that we are having our offsite excursions again. For Outpost, they will be having a 2-day trip to PJ Hoffmaster State Park in Michigan, where they will sleep in tents and spend the days cooking their food on a camp stove and taking day hikes around the area. We're also hoping that they have an overnight experience despite even living in the yurt. So they may have an overnight where they are cooking sizzle burgers over a fire and going to one of our overnight spots on camp, in addition to their PJ Hoffmaster's excursion. If campers are on the Birches program, their off-site program is a canoe trip down the Pine River in the first week of their 2-week session. So it will also be a 2-3 day paddling trip.
Awesome. And Olympics, can you talk a little bit about how the different teen programs do or do not engage with the traditional camp Olympics program?
Some teen programs will fully be off camp during Olympics. So they will not be participating as they may have experienced in traditional camp. Our CITs will have a unique role in Olympics where they'll be helping assist. That's a part of our counselor preparedness, so they can experience the logistical support that comes behind running a camp Olympics. They will not be participating in teams in the same sense. And then our other team programs will have their own special programming that is not Olympics at camp.
Awesome. Lindy, can you maybe speak on how teens who have never been to camp before and don't know anyone adapt? I know we can't speak in broad strokes. Every teen is a little bit different,
Yeah.
but how do we support teens who are coming into camp new in the teen programs?
Awesome question. And if you are a traditional camp person who is hanging out and listening to teens because you can't wait to be a teen one day, bear with me. I said earlier, I get this question a lot. If my camper, or if I don't know anybody at camp and I'm coming to camp for the first time, am I gonna have fun? Or similarly, if I have never been in a camp experience, never slept in a tent, never been out in the woods sleeping away from my family, is this going to be a thing for me? And I'll say, yeah, broad strokes are hard. Everybody has their own experience. In general, if you're coming to camp for the first time, if you're not coming with your best friends, you're going to have a blast because we set you up to make friends very, very quickly. We're also going to make sure that we are teaching you skills and scaffolding our activities in a way that builds your confidence in your ability to do this cool thing that is camp. In our teen programs, gosh, teens at camp are awesome. They, especially, we have enough returning campers and new campers that they understand and remember what it felt like to be a first-time camper and to not know anybody. And one of the coolest things about that is that they take the initiative to make sure that they're reaching out to campers who are new and don't really know anyone yet to be included in the group and the community, because new campers add value to groups, new perspectives, new ideas, new needs. So we really do that. And just know that within the first, 24 hours, I mean, honestly, the bus trip, but within the first 24 hours for our teen programs, they will be doing a lot of get to know yous, name games, team building initiatives, setting expectations for safety, fun, and health in the cabins as a cabin unit. So in your tent or in your program or in your yurt, you'll be having time together to bond and build relationships quickly. Very valid question. And we're going to set you up for success as much as possible.
And I just want to, reiterate what Lindy shared there of, how much value new campers bring to camp. And it's true of staff as well. We're so grateful that we have, close to 70% retention each year of campers who come back from the previous summer, and a similarly pretty high level with staff retention coming back one year to the next. But with that, we know how valuable it is to have fresh perspectives and ideas in camp, and really to create an environment that is open to that and thrives on that. So we really do appreciate that, and want to make sure that's a part of our camp community.
Everybody was new once.
Yeah. All right. There's someone out there who asked a question at 6:58 Central Time before we had even started traditional camp. And I hope you're still out there. You are the most patient. But you asked a question about birches and cabin mate requests, because you asked if is cabin mate requests for a tent or a platform. And so I will say that in our teen programs, cabin mate or section requests aren't really as applicable because we generally only have one site or one space for that. And so at Birches, it is set up as a number of tents. And so the campers are split up into a few different tents, but we don't assign those tents prior to getting out to the site. If we have 12 campers who are going into 4 different platform tents with 3 campers in each tent, we kind of announce, okay, you 12 campers are in Voyageurs Birches. And then very similar, well, actually some of you might not have been here. Lindy in a moment can explain kind of how we do tent assignments in a similar fashion to how we choose bunk beds in traditional camp. So big picture, don't worry about cabin mate requests for our on-site teen programs. It doesn't hurt to put information in there. If you've put information in there already, we love getting insights and how we can make sure that we're supporting kind of some of the dynamics that exist in a group. But Lindy can speak on, how those arrangements, actual community assignments are made.
Yeah, and I'm thinking more specifically for our outposts, or sorry, our voyages at Birches, tent assignments. Yeah, just like our traditional camp, we use camper input as well as group flexibility to create healthy living spaces for our campers that set them up for success and safety, as well as the challenge of getting to know new people and grow new friendships and relationships. In general, you've preferenced like what gender space you would like to be in, and so we of course honor that, and so that's a part of that assignment that happens. And also quickly, as you get to know your group, sometimes it breaks down really easily to who's going to be where, and sometimes there's a conversation with your counselors, maybe with Lily as the teen unit leader, about who's going to end up in what space. I would say usually once the assignments are made, unless there really does need to be a change, we keep those cabin assignment or those tent assignments the same for that 2-week session. And just remember that in general, especially for Birches, y'all are spending all the time together and really only sleeping in your tents. You don't really hang out in there. That's not the space for you to be sleeping, and privacy of changing. It's not a hangout space. So you're together all day, every day, spending time as a whole unit.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I do want to lift up a question that Lily has already answered in writing, but someone asked about eating in the dining hall and the yurts for Outpost. And as Lily said, they do a little bit of both. Outpost will eat some of their meals in the dining hall, and some will be cooked or eaten in their pavilion. They have a kitchen pavilion at the Outpost site. So hopefully they're not eating in their yurts. We don't want food in the yurts. That's our sleeping and living space. So we want to try to keep it food free, critter free. But again, kind of following that idea of progression is really important to us at camp, and kind of experiences that build off each other. So that Voyages at Outpost space, after being in traditional camp, for a lot of our campers in Voyages and Outpost, you eat some of your meals in the dining hall, some of your meals at Outpost, and then our Voyages at Birches site eat almost all of their meals at Voyagers Birches, and only occasionally will they come into camp to eat in the dining hall. So kind of, again, that progression of experience. Lindy, we have a question about swim levels, and just thinking about our teen programs and swim levels. You want to go ahead and field that one?
Yeah. Swim levels for all of our camp programming are the same, as in it's the same swim evaluation to achieve those various levels, whether you are a red swimmer as a beginner swimmer, a white swimmer as an intermediate swimmer, or a blue swimmer as our more advanced group of swimmers. Know that no matter what activity or what swim level you are in, you will still be able to participate in water activities. Just might look a little different and be modified, whether that is wearing a well-fitted life jacket in our waterfront swimming area, or being on a canoe, maybe with a staff member who is a higher swim level, or a lifeguard. So you can still participate in all of those activities. As a blue level specifically, you have fewer restraints in those swimming areas. So in our water areas, you might be able to participate in water skiing as a solo skier, and you might be able to sail without the partnership of an adult staff member, and participate in paddle sports and with some other boat options. So don't stress too much about swim levels. We will get you in the water if you want to be in the water. And if you have like specific concerns or questions about swim levels and participation in activities for our teen programs, let us know. We'll be happy to dig in there.
Lindy, will probably not share this herself, but Lindy is an aquatics expert and loves nothing more than challenge us all to become more proficient in the water. Whatever level we are at, she will meet us or meet you or your camper at that level, and challenge yourself to become more confident, more comfortable, taking that next step in the water area. And that's something that, you know, we think is important for our traditional campers, our teen participants, and our staff as well. We always want to be, you know, challenging ourselves to become more confident in and around water, for personal growth, but also again for that safety component, since water is such a big part of our programmatic opportunities at camp, and such an important part of community safety in Evanston and other communities along the lakeshore.
And Bernard, we have to throw out, just so that people know, yeah, aquatics is my jam, but Lily Brenner also is an aquatics bug, and you will not go through one of our teen programs without having opportunities galore in water spaces, specifically paddle sports, formerly BNC, which is, I think, Lily's soul spot.
Indeed.
BNC, boating and canoeing, now called paddle sports.
But of course, again, I want to emphasize that we're meeting folks where they're at too, right? Like that's always part of what we're trying to do here. All right, I didn't see a specific question, but I think Kristen caught a point for us around LITs and CITs also have opportunities to engage in our horseback riding program if they would like. You know, they will have opportunities in our LIT program to connect with staff and kind of like a mentor-mentee relationship. So if they want to learn more about what it's like to work in the barn, they have opportunities to connect with barn staff, and our counselors in training get to request work to kind of have time working in different program areas that they're more interested in and learning about what it's like to be a staff member in those areas. And so definitely have opportunities for horseback riding experiences. All right, we have, I think, gone through most of the questions. I'm gonna I know we might still have some teen participants out there that want to ask some questions about teen programs, but I'll also open it up to trips at this point. Again, trippers, thank you for being patient and kind of waiting for us to get rolling with this. So quick refresher. It's the third time through here, but I'm Bernard. I really like supporting all of our trippers out there. And also on the screen is Lindy, Lily, and Kristen. We all love trips. We are part of the full-time staff team. Kristen supports our operations in Evanston, buses, arrivals, and departures. You will see her there. She's asking you all to get those forms done. And Lindy, Lily, and I will be at camp all summer helping out with our trips. And so, awesome. I'm going to kick things off here with Trailblazers. So we are so excited about Trailblazers. Trailblazers is making a comeback after a year away, and it's coming back in a slightly different form. So Trailblazers are our introductory adventure trip for rising 7th and 8th graders. It used to be a 2-week offsite trip with half the time spent backpacking and half the time spent paddling. But we've decided for this year, we're trying it out a little bit differently for a variety of reasons that we're really excited about, to make it more accessible and a better kind of transition into our trip programs, that it spends a week in our traditional camp programming and preparing for the offsite excursion, and then a week either backpacking or paddling on trail. And in all of our trip program, none of our trip programs require participants to bring tents or anything else that we call group gear. So Lily, can you give me an assist here and tell me what other things outside of tents might fall into the category of group gear that Camp Echo provides our trip participants with?
All cooking gear and food will be provided on all trips. All tents will be provided on all trips, all tarps and ropes, all emergency medicine and first aid kits will be provided for trips, including a poop kit and a sort of bathroom kit for backcountry bathrooms. Trying to think about otherwise, Kristen can attest to this. There is a request form 4 trips. And so if there are certain gear that your camper would need to request for the Trailblazers program, we'll actually be providing backpacks, but for other tripping programs, campers can be encouraged to bring their own if they have them. Otherwise, they can request it. And there are other sort of trip gear that will be included in packing lists. And if campers don't have that, we can try to assist and meet them where they're at with what we have in our tripping center storage. That can be rain jackets and pants. Trekking poles will be provided for all campers. That's another camp gear that we provide. And then if they're on a paddle trip, all of the boats and paddles will be provided.
Thank you for that, Lily. And if you haven't already reviewed the packing list, there is an individualized or a program-specific packing list and kind of packing overview for each different adventure trip in Camp in Touch based on the program that your camper is enrolled in. And for Trailblazers, it is it might look kind of initially like the traditional camp info, but there's kind of an addendum, extra page or two that talks about what additionally you should bring for the Trailblazers or the adventure trip offsite part of the program. So be sure to take a look through there to learn a little bit more. And again, you're always welcome to reach out to us. We want, especially with Trailblazers as our introductory trip with kids who are growing and young, we really don't want families to feel like they need to spend a lot of money on specialized gear for a 3-4 day excursion from camp. So if you have things that you think, will this work? And you aren't really sure, give us a shout. We're happy to kind of talk through your specific scenario and gear. I'm gonna toss a trips question to Lindy in just a second, but first we have a flashback to Outpost. Someone was asking, said they forgot to ask about the yurts and gender. Are they co-ed? Is there one for boys and one for girls? So at Outpost, we have 2 yurts, and most sessions, I believe sessions 1, 2, sessions 4 and 5, there is a boys yurt and a girls yurt. And then in session 3, we have a girls yurt and an all gender yurt. And all of the participants who are signed up for the all gender yurt have specifically signed up for that or have communicated with our staff. So if you haven't had a conversation with us for session 3 about which yurt you're in, then that would mean that you're signed up for the girls yurt. And in the other sessions, again, it's either a boys yurt or a girls yurt. And if you have questions, want to talk through kind of cabin placements and program placements and gender, encourage you to reach out to our team, chat with Kristen or Lindy to make sure that your camper is in their preferred space at camp. So the question now, I'm going to go back to adventure trips and specifically talking about our water-based trips. So Minnesota Canoe and Georgian Bay, they're both trips where our participants are on water throughout. And so water safety is really important. And if I guess Lindy, my suggestion is if you have questions about an individual's comfort or abilities around water, I ask that you maybe send Lindy an email. And Kristen, if you could maybe put Lindy's email in the chat box just so people have that front and center. But broadly, Lindy, can you just talk about kind of how campers might prepare to be kind of safe and confident as swimmers heading out on a water-based adventure trip?
Yeah, first thing I want to say is if you don't like water and you swimming isn't your jam and getting wet isn't your thing, we have other adventure trips for you. Don't feel like that's the only pathway. However, I want to say that you do not have to be an incredibly proficient swimmer to go on these water trips. Remember that anytime, whether you're at Camp Echo or you're on an adventure trip, that you are on a boat, whether it's a sea kayak or a canoe for either of those trips, you are always going to be wearing a well-fitted PFD fit to you to make sure that in the event of a capsize, whether intentional or not, sometimes it's hot and people are like, I'm taking a swim, that you will be supported by that PFD, personal flotation device, also known as a life jacket. To prepare, so if that sounds like something, oh yeah, like I'm not a really good swimmer, but I really want to do this water trip, like what can I do to prepare to feel confident and safe? Number one is, if you have the opportunity to get in a boat, whether it is a canoe, a kayak, a sit atop, you know, academy-yac, fun-yak, whatever it is, getting the feeling of being sitting on top of a device in the water, that would be awesome. That also is not something a lot of people have access to, right? Like not a lot of people have canoes and kayaks, or maybe even access to lakes. So I would say, if you feel like you have access to get in a pool, whether it's the Y in Evanston, the McGaw YMCA, or a local pool, just to have some time getting comfortable in the water and feeling like you have the ability to maybe take swim lessons, definitely not necessary. Please do that. In general, we set you up for success with the safety protocols in play. Last thing is, know that for all of our water trips, or whether you're canoeing or you're kayaking, we teach you how to paddle. We go over the safety protocols for being in the boat, what happens if you capsize, and how to paddle, how to feel confident in the boat before we just send you out there. So there is a progression to that. You know, canoeing, I think, maybe is a little, you know, depending on your comfort, sometimes a little easier, sometimes a little harder than sea kayaking. So if you have specific questions, yeah, shoot me an email. I would love to talk through that progression with you.
And I do want to speak briefly on our staff, you know, abilities and experiences heading out on those trips. Our guides on water trips are all lifeguards. So we send two for Minnesota Boundary Waters. Our program capacity is 7 campers and 2 staff, because Minnesota Boundary Waters are very strict about their group sizes. They like to keep group sizes down to minimize environmental impact. So the largest the group size can be is 9. And for Georgian Bay, our group sizes are 8 participants and 2 staff, and those staff are always lifeguards. And if we have someone who is really less confident in their swimming abilities, we are most likely put them in a boat with one of those lifeguards. So in the Georgian Bay, it's a combination of one single person and 2-person, or tandem. That's the word I was looking for late in this evening. Tandem kayaks. So, you know, we would keep them as close kind of and safe to one of our staff members as possible, if that was a concern.
Thanks, Bernard.
Not a problem. All right. To nobody's surprise, our traditional camp campers really did put us through the gauntlet of questions, all great questions, really, truly, really appreciate them. But it seems like we don't really have many other adventure trip questions. I knew if I rambled long enough, another one would come. So keep those questions coming. We love talking about trips. So this question is for longer trips. So specifically Cascades backpacking. How much of the group gear, cooking, tent, etc., do campers end up carrying? Trying to get a sense of total pack weight from campers' gear plus group gear. Great question. So we for Cascades, our group sizes are 8 to 9 campers tops with 2 staff. And nice thing kind of is, you know, sometimes when the group gets larger, you might think, oh, it's so much more, but it kind of helps spread some of that group gear out amongst participants. And, you know, the backpack size that we recommend is about 65 liters. There are larger backpacks out there. There's a funny thing they say about backpacks, which is the larger your backpack is, the more stuff you're going to take. Right. So we find ways to fill our backpacks. And so it's, you know, I don't know that I can give a specific weight. It does vary. And the nice thing is it also gets lighter throughout the trip as we eat the food and use up fuel and such. But I think, and again, I'm going to punt this to Lily in a moment here because Lily has led a number of our adventure trips. But a camper should expect to carry at least 1 to 2 kind of pieces of group gear. So maybe tent poles and a cook set, or some fuel for the camp stove and a tarp or 2. So kind of, I'd say 5 plus pounds of group gear. Over to you, Lily.
Yeah, I love sharing group gear. I love that at Camp Echo, it taught me how to be both ethical and equitable with how we are sharing gear. And so campers who can carry more will carry more, and campers who are not comfortable carrying as heavy of a pack will carry less. And together we share what we need to carry. And so for a group of 10, we're only going to have 1 pot set, but maybe one person carries a skillet and the other person carries the big pot. And then within the big pot, they can stuff their sleeping bag and their jacket. And then knowing that things are going to change over the course of the trip. So our food is going to get eaten and our food supply is going to get less heavy, and our fuel is going to be burned. And so our fuel is going to be less heavy. We'll regularly, often daily, put all of our group gear out on a tarp and redistribute for the day. So some people will be carrying ropes, some people will be carrying tarps, some people will be carrying tent poles, some people will be carrying tent bodies. And campers then can also learn how to pack a pack accordingly with rigid items, squishy items, more flexible items, and that's a great skill to have. So campers will regularly be switching up the group gear and regularly be learning how to pack their pack accordingly in a way that fits them safely and comfortably. And that part of the joy also of getting closer towards the end of the trip is it will get lighter and campers will get stronger and better at hiking. So the first few days are going to be hard. Having a lot of food in your pack is hard, but it's going to be rewarding.
Awesome. Great response, Lily. Thank you for that. All right. I knew I just had to pause, and now we've kind of gotten a good chunk of questions coming our way. How many campers in Georgian Bay? Varies by session. Again, the most that we send out on Georgian Bay is 8 campers. And I think we have 6 to 8 participants in each of our programs. Enrollment does oscillate a little bit. Sometimes we get a cancellation or 2, sometimes we get a late addition or 2. So if you have a question about a specific trip, feel free to reach out to us and we can share kind of where enrollment is at. And if we have some spots, you can invite some more friends. We'd love to fill those programs up. All right. Lindy also loves kayaking. And so Lindy, there's a question about what kind of bags campers will use on trail. What do they pack their stuff in to go in that kayak?
I started my adventure tripping life as a backpacker and quickly found that you can glamour camp a little bit more when you're paddling because you don't have to carry your gear. Now you may have to carry it to and from the boat, and heavy boats act differently than lighter boats, but in general, you can pack a lot in those kayaks. Most important thing is when we are packing our gear for any water trips, they're going to be going in things called dry bags, and they are semi-heavy duty bags that are waterproof, and we pack our materials in there. They get rolled up and then snapped together, and they are generally very, very waterproof. And that's going to be for personal gear as well as group gear in those boats. Specifically for kayaks, they then get packed evenly in the hatches in the front and the stern and the bow of the kayaks. And we are, I would say, same as what Lily just shared with you about how we share weight for and backpacks as group gear. We do the same thing for boats. A little bit easier when you're not carrying it, but you still are paddling it forward. yeah, Bernard, what else, like specific things about that?
No, I think you did great there. Again, I'll reference the packing list for the trips. So the Georgian Bay Sea Kayaking packing list and the Minnesota Canoe packing list, each of them will say specifically like what size dry bags you should be bringing so that they fit into kayaks. If you imagine a kayak like it's a long, skinny thing, so the dry bags tend to be that shape. They're more smaller dry bags that you pack them into, which is kind of nice because it kind of, you can pack your things together in kind of an organized manner versus in the Minnesota canoe trip, camp provides campers with these packs called Duluth packs, which are essentially dry bags that are the size of a backpacking backpack. They're like 60, 70, 80 liters that you can put a lot of your belongings into for the short portages, but that they fit in a canoe, which is kind of deeper and wider and broader than a kayak. So again, those pack lists will tell you what specific bags you're responsible for. Someone commented that they had another sibling or child who did a trip a few years ago and loved it, however, felt hungry throughout. Can participants bring their own snacks if they want? So we do ask that participants not bring their own food to camp. However, during the pack out process, groups pack their food, so they plan the meals that they're going to eat as a group, but then they also all get to take a selection of personal snacks. So we have big bins in our tripping center full of granola bars and goldfish and combos. Last year combos were out of stock all summer, but we already learned that we can get combos again this summer. Fruit snacks, so a variety of what we call these personal snacks. And we have a recommended amount that our guys will tell participants to take with them. But again, like Lily said, just like we know that some campers can carry more or might not be able to carry as much, we know that some campers need more fuel than others. And so we really encourage campers to, we don't set a hard cap on how many personal snacks someone can take. We do have a recommended amount for each day. And then if campers say, I'm always hungry, I tend to I need more calories, to let their counselors know and kind of come up with, okay, this is how many more personal snacks you should take. That said, if a camper has a specific unique physical health, dietary consideration that requires some sort of personalized snack for their health and energy, that would be something we just ask you to reach out to us about in advance. But if it's more about quantity, we can handle that on our end pretty well with what we have in stock. All right, the question about well-being check-ins. Will trip leaders do daily check-ins with each camper? So we have something at camp. We talk a lot about SMAB. SMAB is an acronym for Spirit, Mind, and Body, which is kind of a universal part of the YMCA, represented by a triangle. It's even in our logo. If you can see it here, this triangle here, snuck into this Y. It talks about being well is being well in spirit, mind, body. And so we do something called SMAB check-ins. That started in our tripping program as a way to check in with our campers, ask them how they're doing physically, how they're doing emotionally. And spirit is a funny one because that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people. And we empower our young people to interpret that how they want. But I think often, is more about, and I'll share kind of how I interpret it. And Lily can also share, again, having been on trail, how it's utilized in a more practical way with a group. But is, how are you connecting with the group and how are your kind of energy levels and your motivation to kind of be doing what you're doing, which is similar, but I think nuanced in some ways to kind of that emotional mental check-in. So those are check-ins that are done to varying degrees frequently throughout the trip. And again, Lily, I'll ask you to share anything you feel like I might have missed when it comes to SMAB check-ins.
Yeah, trip staff do an excellent job of being attuned to their campers and their campers' needs. They're definitely spending a lot of time with their campers, and they're serving so many roles. They're also being the camp nurse, they're also being the camp cook, they're also being the camp counselor. And so they are assisting their campers as needed. And so with a regular SMAP check-in, they're checking in daily, and a camper might say, body, I have some hot spots on my feet from hiking. I'm worried they're going to become blisters. And a counselor goes, okay, we have some Vaseline and some Band-Aids, and we're going to find a way to support your feet. And mind, I'm feeling a little weird without my phone. I've never been in a place so quiet before. It's going to take some getting used to, but if you can find a way, I've never had this much quiet time. Like, can we play games or talk while I'm hiking or sing songs to sort of fill up that space? And then spirit, it was really rainy and it kind of brought me down. So just keeping that in mind, maybe what are some ways to get my spirits up? Can we play more games? I think there is a wonderful opportunity for relationships, both with campers amongst each other, with themselves, and with their counselors. And you'll be impressed with how aware your counselors are of your campers' needs on a trip, just because of how close they are.
Awesome. All right. There are a couple questions around meeting fellow trippers and counselors or guides before the trip. And unfortunately, that's not something that we currently have built into our program or capacity for. Many of our guides are out on trail the session before, and sometimes our staffing changes, again, based on the health and wellness of our guides. We're always checking in with them at the end of the trip, making sure they're ready to head on the next trip. So we try not to commit to our staffing slate too early, just knowing that it can change at any time. We do appreciate these questions, and something that we're open to suggestions on for the future, as something that could be a possibility, but again, is kind of evolving in our current structure and not something that we offer. All right, Lindy, I'm trying not to put you in too much of a corner here, but can you talk a little about safety precautions with regard to water trips? And so, we spoke a little bit about the guides or lifeguards. We do swim evaluations to make sure we do kind of orientation. And Georgian Bay, we do a day of paddle school before sending them out on the Georgian Bay. But maybe can you speak specifically to like weather and kind of those types of challenges or emergencies that might arise when on water trips?
Totally. Yeah, just know that every day in a backcountry setting, decisions are made with safety at the forefront of the mind. Always, always, always. So our guides they go through an extensive staff training that includes a trip into a backcountry setting where they may actually experience some of these like real life, real-time decision making about weather and safety. Now, specifically for our water trips, common things that our water adventure trips can experience are high winds and thunderstorms. And lightning on water trips is never fun and can be expected. And we make sure that we make decisions about when we're going, where we're going. We have flexibility often built into itineraries to be able to spend a day exploring camp if it's incredibly windy, or if it's maybe storming and we're expecting to have a thunderstorm coming our way. I'm thinking both paddling locations often have a lot of places where we can stop and pull out of the water if necessary, when necessary. And like I said, the flexibility in those trips often we have a buffer day or more if we need it, to not be on the water in unsafe conditions. And that will be a decision that was made between the two adventure trip guides. Often, kids will be like, it's fine, it's just raining right now. But, we trust our guides and their decision making to be able to say, to decide what's best for the crew. when water safety lens. Lily, anything else that's in your mind about water trips and protocols and safety around water, weather, or more?
Yeah, this kind of ties into another question that I see in the Q&A about communication. And what is unique about adventure trips is is being in the backcountry, which often means out of cell service. And so campers will not be able to share camper emails as they would if they were in traditional camp. However, all trips are outfitted with either a phone or a satellite phone in places where we don't get cell service. And so those part of our Camp Echo safety and precautions that we take is we have regular scheduled check-in calls where our staff, even when we're in areas where you don't get cell service, we have satellite phone service where we are communicating with camp at regularly scheduled intervals saying, all of our campers are great. And do you have the weather report for us? And we also have that phone in case of an emergency. And so if there does need to be an evacuation, if there is a medical need, we have that device to support us with taking care of our campers.
Awesome lifts, Lily. Thank you.
All right, so a couple questions about bathrooms. And so bathrooms are something that, you know, are definitely a little bit different in adventure trips. Specifically in the boundary waters, what is that like? And so a lot of the places we go as national parks, national wilderness areas do actually have good infrastructure in place for bathroom use to avoid humans leaving our mark all over the place. So Minnesota boundary waters, there are pit toilets at all the designated campsites. And so it's usually one of the first things that a group will do when they get to the campsite is find out where that toilet is, because it's set, usually set maybe 50 yards away from kind of the tent area to have some separation there. And so similar to in traditional camp, if someone wakes up in the middle of the night and needs to use the bathroom, they're reminded to keep a flashlight handy so that they can get in and out of their tent easily. But then to also, talk about, have a plan with their tent mates hey, if I would need to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, I'm going to wake you up to go with me, and vice versa, whatever that group needs to feel comfortable using the bathroom in the middle of the night. With regards to wildlife, there is different wildlife in different parts of Michigan in different parks. For instance, Isle Royal is known for their moose. It's Isle Royal where we send backpacking groups. Is a national park island off the coast. It's actually closer to Minnesota and Canada than it is the Upper Peninsula, but it's technically part of Michigan. And it has over 1,000 moose. So it's very common to come across moose. And our groups are trained in general with most wildlife. The protocol is to avoid them, give them plenty of space. Do not try to get close to them. Do not try to pose for pictures. We've seen plenty of memes and news stories of what can go wrong when groups try to get close to wildlife. So sometimes that'll mean turning around and going back to the previous campsite if the animals are really blocking the path to where they need to go. And again, we always kind of follow the discretion of the local park service. When we get our permits, we have to check in with park rangers or Forest Service representatives, and they kind of advise on what the best protocols are for wildlife in that area. And then tick checks, just like in traditional camp, we do tick checks regularly. They're not as common in some of our further north trips, but we still follow that practice, and staying hydrated is super important. So we definitely, stay hydrated throughout the day, drink water as a group, refill our water bottles frequently as a group. And again, with sunscreen, more so, we apply sunscreen frequently. It's a ritual that everyone does as a group. However, we also require, specifically on our paddling trips, so Minnesota Canoe and Georgian Bay, we do require participants and staff to wear sun shirts. And we highly recommend that those are long sleeve sun shirts because they spend so much time on the water that it's really hard to wear enough sunscreen that doesn't rub off, and that we get all the spots to avoid getting sunburns. And that can be really detrimental to the experience of the trip. So we require sun shirts and brimmed hats. We recommend like the big round brim. Those are great, keep the sun off you. And we encourage that even on our hiking trips. The greatest protection from the sun is clothing, kind of going, blocking entirely, and shade, of course. But we still, put sunscreen on our faces and our hands. The hands are an area that are sometimes overlooked when paddling, but, protecting our hands from sunburn. How much money do you have in your account when you go to Camp Echo, and what can you buy? So that is a good question, especially for our adventure trips. Our adventure trips, with the exception of Trailblazers, are the only participants that don't actually come to camp with any funds in their camp store account or their trading post account. That's because they spend so little time on camp. Some of our trips leave, they arrive to camp on Sunday, and some of them leave as early as Monday night. So they're on site for about 24 hours. And so, they don't necessarily need trading post funds, but if campers are planning on getting souvenirs, if they want to get a sweatshirt or a t-shirt or a sun shirt, or a water bottle while they're at camp, we do encourage parents to put some funds in via Camp in Touch before they go to camp. Know that you can also purchase a lot of those items before camp through our online trading post, and have them shipped to you at home. So if you're doing your packing list, you're like, ooh, I need 2 water bottles. I'd love for them to be Camp Echo water bottles. You can go ahead and order those from our online trading post or sun shirts. And I'll say, wait a few weeks. We are about to update it with all of our new inventory for this summer. And you'll probably get an email from us in about 2 weeks saying summer 2023 trading post gear is live. But yeah, so that's, you don't have any funds in account, and you also don't need to bring any cash with you on the trip. Everything is included, including getting some snacks on the road and getting a souvenir from the trip. The group will kind of decide, has a budget to get souvenirs for everyone, whether that's a t-shirt or a sticker. The budget varies slightly by trip and kind of what the known souvenirs are. What's the latest we can stay up? Trip time is funny. Trip time is a little bit different, and even more so than in traditional camp. When you're out in the wilderness, your body starts to really kind of become more synchronized with nature and kind of sunrise to sunset. Usually at the end of the day, campers and staff are really tired. And so once that sun is set, there's probably a pretty good chance that everyone's going to be in their tent soon thereafter. And it's probably going to be a pretty awesome sunset. A lot of our trips get really amazing sunsets. And then, we'll probably maybe do a TAPS talk if they haven't already, and then head into tents. And that rest is so important before getting up the next day and doing it again. So less so than traditional camp, where there is this a real defined hourly schedule from activity to the next. It's more about what's happening throughout, what's happening in the environment around us, and what do we need to accomplish for the day. And do we have a big day tomorrow and we're gonna have to get up early to kind of get out of camp quickly and cover a lot of ground. So yeah, it's nature guides us. It is true. And sometimes our guides when we really need to know what time it is. All right, will pictures be taken on water trips like they do at traditional camp? Yes and no. Not quite like they do at traditional camp. So we don't have a photographer out there on the trips, and we don't post photos every day from the trips because we don't have that type of communication. But we do send an old school disposable camera with every trip, and on those water trips, we do put them in dry bags and try to waterproof them best we can so they don't get damaged. But the groups take photos, each camper, it gets kind of passed. Different campers have different roles each day. And so whoever the photographer is can take a couple pictures each day. And after the session, we get them developed and uploaded to Camp in Touch. It usually takes a few weeks. There's no 1 hour photo kind of development like there used to be maybe for us. So it takes some time, but we do get some photos back from each trip. And occasionally, campers or staff will take a digital camera with them if they feel comfortable taking that on a water trip and keeping it safe from damage. And sometimes when we get those photos provided to us back at camp, we can get those uploaded as well for families to enjoy. All right. Lindy, I see we got a couple questions here. And actually, I'm going to talk through the medical protocol question. Hold on 1 second. In terms of protocol, if there's an injury and they need medical attention on an adventure trip. So obviously, again, no two situations are the same. And so our guides are all, every trip has at least one, usually two wilderness first responders. So a wilderness first responder, our guides go through a robust training. It's kind of the most advanced training short of an EMT. So it's a 10-day wilderness medical training certification. And so they're prepared to handle most kind of advanced first aid situations and evaluate whether an injury necessitates what Lily referenced earlier being an evacuation protocol, and whether if it's severe enough to be an emergency that requires like emergency evacuation. So generally if it's an injury that is uncomfortable but someone can continue going, the group might adjust their itinerary to make it a little easier for the group to remove some of the challenges if they can make a shorten the itinerary a little bit. If they really need advanced attention, say they need to go to a hospital and get stitches, or if they need to get an x-ray or something, then we'll work with them to find the quickest path out. And again, we always have access to calling emergency support if need be, to help get the groups out in the local areas. So I see a few questions about tents or cabins, and right now we're talking about our adventure trip programs. We do have a lot of our campers are in traditional camp as well. And so in traditional camp, they do stay in cabins, whereas right now we're talking about our adventure trips, which are for our older campers, and they stay in tents. And I love this question. Can we bring stuffed animals? And honestly, I'd say yes for any program, with an asterisk in traditional camp. You can bring maybe a slightly larger, moderately sized stuffed animal. I wouldn't encourage anything too big that can't fit in your bag. Whereas if you were going on an adventure trip and you had some sort of, memento, whether it be a stuffed animal, a photo of your family, or something that you wanted to bring along, I would just say that it should probably be able to fit within your hands, maybe kind of small and light. But we always welcome campers bringing a little memento. I think again, thinking about our trips, it might seem like, oh, another thing you have to carry. But if that thing that you're carrying gives you the energy to carry that and so much more because it's good for your spirit and your energy, then that's a great thing to bring with you. Wonderful. Well, we have answered over 100 questions according to our question and answer tabulation there, and we still have 20 dedicated attendees out there. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I hope you have learned a ton. It is, again, we could answer questions forever, and so we do ask that you just reach out to us. Kristen put our email address in there, so you can email us at echoinfo@nogalaymca.org if you have questions. And even if it's like a nuanced specific question, Echo Info is kind of the best place to send it, because it'll get redirected there to the best person to answer the question. And so if someone's out of the office for a week or for a couple of days, no one's out of the office for a week at this point. We're all deep in it, getting ready for summer. But this will help you get the quickest response from someone by sending it to Echo Info. So thank you all so much. Have a lovely rest of your evening. I hope you're staying warm. It is getting all the cold, wet weather out of the way. I think right now up at camp, it's like 37 degrees and rainy. So we know that means that it's going to be warm come June and July. So we look forward to seeing y'all. Have a lovely evening.